You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting, honestly, Adam, an exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast, where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
I'm Zach. Hey, Adam.
Hey.
Do you know what today is the prelude to?
Well, we're recording on a Tuesday, so it is the prelude to Wednesday.
Yes.
We're also recording before Thanksgiving, so maybe it's the prelude to Thanksgiving, but this is coming out after Thanksgiving, so maybe it's the prelude to Christmas. What is it the prelude to, Zach?
It is the prelude to friggin' I don't know, what's December 3rd? Is December 3rd a Saint Day?
Oh, well, every day is a day. You know, sometimes it's National Cat Day, some days National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Like there's Batman Day, so it's got to be something.
Well,
it's
it is
probably
of
like
course,
Grilled Cheese Day or something.
I mean, it is the anniversary of Pope John X crowning Berengar the First of Italy as Holy Roman Empire, excuse me.
Wait, but Zach, isn't this episode coming out on the 9th?
Adam, it is. Crap. So, I don't know anymore. Hold on. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm going to pick someone's birthday real quick. It'll be the prelude to that. This is a bad bit, and it's not interesting to anyone, including us.
No, this is...
Sometimes, folks, you roll the dice, and you come up snake eyes, and that's what we have done here. I thought I was going to be able to come up with something, and you know what? I got nothing for you. This episode is about prequels. That's what it is.
See, Zach, all you had to do was a Google search. You could have found out that December 10th is Bobby Flay's birthday.
Oh, screw Bobby Flay. I don't like Bobby Flay.
You know what's so funny? You type in celebrity birthdays and it feeds you all of these TikTok YouTubers, and I have no idea who any of these people are because I'm so old.
I don't know
who these people are.
I don't know who these TikTok YouTubers are with their MySpaces and their Zanga accounts. It's all I don't know, man. Look, I'm sorry. I'm out of juice on the bit. I have nothing, Adam. I can't even yes and right now.
All right. Well, look, the reason we keep talking about preludes, right, is because that is supposed to be the theme of this episode, correct?
That is the tentative theme of this episode. Thanks so much to the just released X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude Omnibus, which is not sponsored on this show. Marvel did not give us money to talk about it, so I don't care if you buy it or not. But what I do care about is that our great patron Robert said, you know what, guys, this came out, so in honor of this, can you talk about this story over here that is a prelude to a different event? I'm sure you can figure out something there. That was the whole thing. And you know what? I love that. It lets us do, again, stuff that's dumb that we'll enjoy talking about. But, Adam, do you know what's weird?
What is weird, Zach?
That some of the folks listening aren't like Robert and haven't gone over to patreon.com/battleoftheatom, reached deep down into their hearts and pocketbooks and tossed a couple of those coins right into our coffers. You know, if you've been listening to this show for a while, maybe 7 years, and you've been a freeloader, I don't care. I don't care, but like...
We're here for you, but we'd love to do a show for you.
Wouldn't it be fun?
For you.
Wouldn't it be fun for you? Treat yourself after 7 years of being a loyal listener. Being like, yes, I could spare $5 whole US and get Zach and Adam to wildly misinterpret a request of mine.
Like you're going to the grocery store, you know, at some point and you're like, I want a pint of ice cream to like indulge in this week. And I guarantee you most of those are going to cost more than the $5 it would take to get your own bespoke episode of Battle of the Atom. So
yeah, thanks Obama. All this inflation, $5 pints of ice cream.
Stop. Not funny. All right.
You laughed. It's a little funny. It's a little funny.
was funny.
Hold on. That's a classic. But anyway, Robert wanted us to do preludes and prequels. So this is a prequel to not the Mutant Massacre. This is actually a prequel to the Mutant Massacre series. This is a prequel to Life Death. It is Uncanny X-Men 182 Madness. It's written by our boy, Chris Claremont, friend of the show, Chris.
Papa Chris.
We all love him. And we all love the joy that Chris Claremont has brought to our lives.
Yes.
And may or may not want to interact with him all of the time, but that's fine. He has his own world and we have ours, and never again shall the twain meet. It's okay.
Oh,
we all have more Chris Claremont experiences than we know what to do with. And I think that's beautiful.
That's true.
I think that is
Thanks for the memories.
Thanks for the memories, just like Fallout Boy said. Pencils by John Romita Jr., a man who needs no introduction.
No, his arm muscles do all the introduction.
Yeah, folks, by the way, if you have not just checked out what's going on with John Romita Jr.'s delts or his triceps, biceps, the man is...
He's ripped.
The man scares me. Like, he is his own reference at this point.
Well, he's being inked by Dan Green here, colored by Glynis Wine. You got letters by Tommy Orrs, and Rogue is flying. She's our central character for this issue, and she is flying around. She's having a great time. The rest of the X-Men just got beamed back from Secret Wars and fought a dragon in Japan.
Well,
and
Rogue was there too.
Rogue was there too, and is basically being sent ahead so that she can check the team's voicemail, the answering machine tape.
To be fair, the New Mutants did not get sent into that, so they're like, we should probably go back over there. Also, what's going on with Kitty? She was not with us when I forget how the X-Men got sent to Secret Wars. Walked through the portal in Central Park, I assume. I don't remember.
Didn't they just disappear?
Man, look.
It was like, hey, where are we? We're here in a dome. Yonder.
It was after Emma Frost possessed Storm and did a body swap with Storm. So
uncomfortable.
So they're dealing with the fallout with that. Anyway, they're like, we should go check on Kitty. So they go check on Kitty. But here's the thing about Rogue. Rogue, who is still relatively new and young to this team, has to deal with the fact that she did totally absorb Carol Danvers into her. And she's having a hard time separating her Carol Danvers memories from her Rogue memories.
Oh, 100%. So that while she's listening to these voicemails, which do include a handwritten note for where the New Mutants are, they're off to the Massachusetts Academy to rescue Kitty Pryde from Emma Frost, which I enjoyed that. And she also gets this message that Captain Marvel's old flame, Colonel Michael Rossi, is in some trouble.
You talking about Ace, buddy?
Yeah, Ace is not in good shape. He has been taken in by S.H.I.E.L.D. and is being beaten pretty badly by these two agents, one of which, who's really being like, hey, maybe don't beat up this guy so much, is secretly working for Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Rogue Carol Danvers thing in practice?
I never liked it, to be honest. Like, it feels really annoying when Rogue, who I really like, gets tripped up and taken over by Carol Danvers. That said, I do think it's handled pretty well here in this particular issue because she's not really aware of what's going on. She is not sure why she needs to go and rescue Rossi. And then when she finally does rescue Rossi and brings him back to, I guess, Carol Danvers' mom's house, where do they end up? They end up somewhere that's like
Boston.
Yeah. And suddenly Rogue is talking in a Boston accent and reminding Rossi of all these memories of their life together. And Rossi is like really confused. He's not having this.
Here's the thing about Carol Danvers. She doesn't have the town accent enough. And
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a lot of like, some of the Wickeds in there with Carol,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah.
talking about hell of a run that
Parking the
Brady
car by the
had.
bar.
I don't.
Yeah.
I was just in Boston recently.
You
People
in
do talk like
Boston?
that. I was in
You
Boston
in
recently.
Boston?
I was. They got mad at me, not mad. They laughed at me when I mispronounced the name of one of the towns that I was staying in. And I was like, I'm
Oh,
staying in, I don't know. They're
what was
like,
the town?
I think I said Denham. And they were like, it's Denham.
Oh,
I was like,
Denham.
those are pants. What pants are made of.
Oh man, it would be great if Claremont, because you know how he loves to play around with
If
accents.
Claremont
If he'd
gave her a
really,
phonetically Boston accent so that we
yes,
could tell the difference, that would
that'd
have
be
been
pretty great.
that would have been a good bit. But
Yeah.
the challenge is I like Carol, but specifically I like Carol after Rogue has taken over her. Like everything beforehand, like she was a character that just didn't work, even
Mhm.
if people had thrown some good ideas and some good concepts at her. She just conceptually wasn't clicking. And even if like the current Captain Marvel like era of Carol Danvers, people have some issues with, it's hard to deny that she doesn't work better. Like you have an idea of who she is, what she does, where in this she is still just Claremont Pilot Girl. And
Yeah.
it's it just makes for a bit of a generic story, especially when the tragedy is like about Rogue feeling bad about her actions, but that's the only Rogue story for a while. And like it was here's why Gambit works with Rogue. I'm going to throw this in here.
Yeah.
Gambit works with Rogue because it gave her a different way to feel bad about her powers instead of something outside of my control happened when I was a teenager and now
Mm.
I've kind of moved past it to my powers are inherently stopping me from getting what I want. Like that's why giving her specifically a love interest works. Gambit being the love interest works because he's just charming as heck.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't know if the Carol Danvers stuff works as well with Rogue because like there's only so much juice you can squeeze from that.
Well, and Claremont sticks around with this particular thing for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
this is still going to be going on like literally 100 issues later, or so it's like it's not until like the 270s that this gets wrapped up, and it's crazy that it holds on for this long. I will say, for fans of the Hellfire Club, there is a great scene where this Shield agent, undercover Shield agent, is checking in with Sebastian Shaw, and we get a fantastic cameo from Sage. So remember that
You talking
Tessa
about
is a
Tessa?
character. Yes, Tessa is here, and Tessa is acting very sage-like in that Sebastian Shaw is asking her to do computations and odds on the spot, like a human computer.
This
And I'm
is where
like,
you get the Tessa analysis stuff.
yeah, I'm like, okay, Claremont's got an idea for this character. He knows something is going on. This is also,
That's the thing about
a,
Sage. Claremont always wanted to do something and just never fitted it in.
yeah, yep. And then, comes back and makes it happen.
Then it was the only
But
thing
the
he wrote
pieces
about
are
for
there.
5 years, but
Well, yeah, there's that too. I think the other thing I do enjoy about this is that it's still of the era where like everything does have to fit together. So we do have to know what happened with Secret Wars. We have to know where the rest of the X-Men are. We have to know where the New Mutants are. And even Emma Frost has to comment on that to Sebastian. So I still love this era where, it's small enough that everything has to connect and overlap.
well,
It's a fun issue.
in speaking in terms of preludes, what this
Mhm.
works really well with, and something I thought of, because at first I frankly forgot to check what stories we had already covered, and we added 84 and 85 to this, which we've already
Yep.
covered. That's where the power suck happens to Storm. Um,
Yes.
I'm blanking on the name of Forge's fake power sucking gun.
The neutralizer.
Yeah, the neutralizer gun thing. Anyway, what I think is interesting is that as a prelude, this sets up like another focus on Rogue and why she is feeling the way she's feeling and what's going on with her and why there's so much additional attention on her, while then setting things up as it moves forward to do a big Storm story. Like
Mhm.
it is Claremont threading, or not even threading the needle, passing a baton between his characters, using Rogue to set up the next Storm story, which is going to set up the next story after that, and keep going and going. And I think that's something that is generally missing from comics today, especially because like they don't have time to do the character stuff anymore. 20 pages is not a lot, and 20 pages when no one will read Claremont style dialogue anymore.
That is an interesting point, because I was reading this and I was like, oh, I'm like, lots happening here. And I looked down and I'm on page 12. And I was like, oh, this is, you forget when you haven't read a Claremont comic in a while, how dense they are. So lots happening in here.
Lots happening. And listen, it's Chris Claremont X-Men. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. We
How
should try
good
and
is
rank
it,
it on
though?
our big old list.
Yes, Adam, thank you for bringing that up. This is our big old list ranking every X-Men story from best to worst. We've been ranking this stuff for nigh on 7 years now. And Adam, do you know how many comics we have covered on this big old list?
The list says 972. That's
right.
wild.
That's right. If you can believe it, we're on the road to 1,000. We have almost ranked 1,000 X-Men comics, which, as we continue to say, is too many.
It's crazy. Oh, man.
But, we're going best to worst. Best House of X Powers of 10. I don't care what anyone tells you. It's good. I was thinking about it earlier this week, and I was like, man,
it's good
stuff.
stuff.
You know that part where Cyclops says, does it need doing? Then it will be done.
Pretty good.
So good. So good.
Pretty good.
So good. Number 300 is Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut. That's from Spider-Man, wouldn't you know it? Number 600 is Uncanny X-Men 262 and 263. I don't remember what those are. I think a Brood thing. I want to say that's a Brood thing.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Based only on issue numbers. Rough that we know how to do that. We're like, yeah, based on these issue numbers, it's probably this one. Young X-Men number 7 is at 900. And the worst X-Men story of all time is 2099 World of Tomorrow. Hey, where should Madness go? Because it's not as good as 180 or 184 and 185.
No, those are at 115 on our big old list. I don't even think this is in the top 200. At 200,
200 right now is the Leprechauns of Cassidy Keep.
Yeah, this isn't as good as that. I'm working my way down.
It's not as good as Wolverine Snicked.
And that's at
203, baby.
Yeah, at 300, we do have Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut. I do think we're probably in the realm of like Kitty Pryde and Wolverine at 295.
Yeah, this is like solid, good, but not show-stopping Claremont X-Men. It's better than the time Colossus pretended to be a ghost, I would say.
And Uncanny 231, I agree. I don't think this is as good as Madripoor Nights at 287, though.
I don't know what was up my craw when we ranked Madripoor Nights. It does bother me that it's that low, because I keep thinking about that comic specifically. Like, no, that one rules. That rocks.
Yeah. But I do think this is probably better than the time Sam introduced Lila Cheney to his mom, which is right below that.
Then great. It can be our new 288.
Perfect. That's great. So, folks, we do have some more Uncanny stories for you, but not X-Men. Not Uncanny X-Men.
Everything's X-Men, but these are Uncanny Avengers. This is Uncanny Avengers, Volume 1, 23 to 25. It is the March to Axis. Adam, you know about Axis, right?
I hate Axis. We've covered Axis. It's the worst.
So we have had some interesting thoughts about Uncanny Avengers vis-a-vis this podcast. In fact, there is an Uncanny Avengers story that's right before this, Avenge the Earth, is pretty high. That's at 68 on this list, because that's a good, fun story. So I, in my infinite wisdom, because I had gotten into comics at this time, like was reading monthly and all this stuff and had some disposable income. I was like, I'm going to buy Uncanny Avengers and get pumped up. Remender's going to do this big Axis event and it's going to be great. I don't know what's going to happen. It's exciting. And brother, I'm going to be honest. Reading these 3 issues and what the prelude to Axis is should have given me a good clue that I was going to dislike Axis.
Yes, I think it should have, because these are the 3 issues that are not only an epilogue to the Planet X stuff that we've talked about before.
Avenge the Earth, yes.
Avenge the Earth, but it is also the 3 issues leading into Axis. We are getting 3 different artists here. Sanford Green, a surprisingly restrained Salvador LaRocca. I thought his issue's actually not that bad. And normal artist of the book, Daniel Acuna at this point.
Acuna's great. I'll agree with you on LaRocca. Green, we've raved about Sanford Green on this podcast before. We have done so. Green is a truly phenomenal artist. I heard that Bitterroot was coming back, and I couldn't be more stoked for that. This issue feels a little rushed by him.
I agree.
And doesn't feel up to his normal level of excellence, which is disappointing.
Yeah. So, the problem with this arc is that what Remender wants to do is remind us not of what just happened, which was really exciting and interesting, except for a few things, including Immortus coming back and promising Havoc and Janet that they can have their long lost child.
We need to remind people, because they may not remember, Adam. They may have forgotten.
Havoc and Wasp were married for a very long time in this alternate reality and did have a child. And then when returned to this reality, lost that child. So that's crazy.
And I want to be so clear, because losing a child can be a euphemism. I mean, they don't know where the child is. Kang took the child.
Yes. And
the child is lost in the time stream. And
the character Katie Summers has never returned.
And I say likely will never return. Katie Summers will return in like 20 years. Like someone will do a story. Someone will.
I'd love to. I would love to do that.
I have
real fun.
Adam, and I say this with love. I say this with so much love for you and your comics. Please write about anything else if you get the opportunity.
Well, so we're getting this Planet X epilogue stuff, but then this is what's so annoying about this, is because what Remender wants to do is remind us all of the arc that started Uncanny Avengers, which is terrible, which is the Red Skull Xavier Brain stuff with the S-Men, which I absolutely hated. And here we're back again with these characters who I do not like.
And so it's not even that, but
it is.
Well, that's okay, it is that, but it is additionally, and this is something that Remender has done throughout Uncanny Avengers, and really going back to Uncanny X-Force. He has the first arc of Uncanny X-Force sets the tone for these 2 books. It is, what do you do if you're in this situation, and you think that killing a kid will bring about the greater good, will be better. If you know that if you could kill baby Hitler, would you do it? Like that's the question he wants to answer. And I think in Uncanny X-Force, what he posits is you're killing this, innocent being, and there are ramifications for that. Like that, not necessarily right or wrong decision. He straight up calls it a wrong decision, but also Phantom X doesn't suffer anything like beyond just the cost of what he did, paying the cost for it. It's not saying that, no, he made the wrong choice for the universe. In this one, however, Remender takes this a step further into a direction that I have to say is mind-boggling, and has only gotten worse with age. And it was bad a decade ago. Because I want to hear your well. I want to hear your well. I want to hear what you say of well, Adam.
Well,
because
I'm interested in what moment we're talking about, because there is let's lead up to this a little bit.
Let's lead up to it.
Red Skull and his S-Men do capture
Ahab.
And Ahab.
And
we
Ahab.
have to mention Ahab is here.
We have to.
Because Ahab is important to this episode. Not really.
He just shows up twice. It's weird.
Yeah. Rogue, Wanda, and Havoc have been taken to Red Skull's new fancy concentration camp
on Genosha that he built.
Yes. And who else is there in captivity, fresh out of Cullen Bunn's book, but Magneto.
Magneto's
there. Rogue can get out of the power dampening collar because Red Skull does not know that, just like Carol Danvers was just living in Rogue in our previous issue that we were just talking about, now Wonder Man lives inside of Rogue.
Listen, I'll say it before and I'll say it again. Best thing Wonder Man ever did was give Rogue her good powers back.
Yeah, still in effect today, I believe.
That's
I'm not a little unclear on
I
that.
can tell you, continuity wise, here's what happened. Rogue had Carol Danvers powers. She eventually loses the Carol Danvers powers in the early 2000s as Claremont's trying to do a story with her. Like he's doing that for a reason. But then people wanted to like bring that back. So she gets Sunfire powers for a little bit, and then she has nobody's powers. And then at that point, Mike Carey does a big story with her, and that lasts for a while, and that's fine. And when someone accidentally draws her using her old powers, they say off panel, "Oh yeah, I just touched North Star 5 seconds ago, so I have all these powers."
Oops.
Great, love it. Then she absorbed Wonder Man powers, and by Wonder Man powers, they just mean old Carol Danvers powers. That's all we mean.
Pretty much.
We just mean she can fly and punch things good now. Again, still.
Yeah. And eventually Wonder Man in Uncanny Avengers Volume 2 does escape Rogue's body. But for the purposes of this story, we now have basically Rogue, Wanda, and Havoc trying to save the prisoners and fight off the S-Men while trying to stop Magneto.
Okay, so here's
from killing Red Skull. Is that correct?
Okay, yes. Okay. So, and this made me mad a decade ago. It is one thing to try and make a moral argument about you should not kill baby Hitler. That is
right, because
ground for an interesting story.
Phantom X then spends several years behind the scenes training Genesis to Evan to be a good boy.
There's a lot of interplay there, just in the general like high sci-fi concept of
right.
Would you make this trade-off?
Yes.
I would say you lose some moral high ground and you lose some of the ambiguity in my personal political philosophy. And I'm not endorsing murder. Not pro-murder. Won't say that. Can't say I'm pro-murder. None of you can say I'm pro-murder, and I don't want you to say that. What I will say is if you have a Hitler actively doing a concentration camp and a guy who survived original Hitler is there and he says, "Oh, I'm going to murder you so that this stops happening and other people don't die," I think it's weird that all of the superheroes in the comic are like, "No, don't. You're just as bad as him." And I have to say,
no, he's not.
No.
No, he's
on
not.
all scales. On all scales, no, he's not.
No, he's absolutely not. And it's also really kind of a great moment when Magneto just like Magneto just freaking takes a chunk of wall and just like smashes Red Skull's head in.
It's so important because Magneto gets Red Skull. And we need to be clear. This is not like Red Skull who took over a Russian oligarch and
no. This is original recipe.
This is literally time traveled out of World War II Red Skull. It was like, we gotta just keep this going. Red Skull.
Yes.
Magneto says, "Oh, you don't like mutants? That's fine. I'm not going to kill you like a mutant. I'm going to kill you with my bare fists.
Yes.
And it rules, except for that at the same time, Rogue and Havoc and Scarlet Witch are like, no, you can't do this. Whoa, no, you can't. And then there's like, but what about Professor Xavier's brain? And brother, I got to tell you, when the guy's dead and his brain got cut out, that's not how brains work. And y'all know this.
It's so funny. I will say the line before Red Skull gets his head smashed in, where he tells Magneto that Xavier never was in love with him, is such a great burn.
Listen,
It's so good.
here's the thing. What's weird about this scene is not that Daniel Acuna, is not that Acuna isn't telling a great story or that Remender hasn't set up a really cool, like, thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, Adam, you know the issue where Red Skull gets put into a hole by Magneto?
Yep. We've covered it on this show.
An issue that friend of the show, Jordan Bloom, and voice of the rat from Ratatouille, Patton Oswalt, have put in their curated collection of the 10 best Marvel comics of all time.
It's a good one.
And when they put that in there, I DM'd Jordan and said, Jordan, you picked this one, right? You picked the one where they put him in the hole. I was like, yeah, because it's the best. I said, I know it's the best. We know it's the best, man. It's the best. It would be like if that was going on, and then Captain America was in the corner of every panel being like, Magneto, no, you can't put Red Skull into a hole. You can't do that. That's not what heroes do. It's freaking insane. It was insane in 2014. And I'm going to be honest. Like a decade later, with everything that's gone on in the last decade since the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm. It's not a good look. It's not a good look either that this is the tipping point for an event that essentially turns all good guys into bad guys and all bad guys into good guys, as if like this particular event is the catalyst for all of these people flipping. And I mean, just got me some. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Really
I hate Axis
dumb.
so much. These issues are fine. I just am annoyed because it's not nearly as fun or as entertaining as what came before it. And it kills a particularly cathartic moment with Magneto, with all of these like very stupid reactions from our heroes. Because
also doesn't Havoc, who by the way, his face is all screwed up right now. He's got a melted face right now.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Havoc wanted to kill Kang the Conqueror.
I'm sure he would.
I don't know why Havoc is not having an incredibly reasonable reaction to all of this.
I don't know. Plus, Havoc and Rogue have been on the X-Men enough times to have this conversation about compromising our, and should we kill the baddie and should we not kill the baddie? And like, come on. Like,
here's the thing.
This is not even a question in this particular situation with this particular character in this setting with the person who is doing the killing. Like,
yes, if anyone gets a pass on this one, like you've set up a perfect situation that no one saw anything. There were no witnesses. No one could tell you what happened. No one. Nope. There is not a jury in the world that would convict Magneto of this.
That's right. They'd be like,
it's insane.
Pat on the back, brother.
I know that like you and me specifically got annoyed with how much the X-Men were murdering earlier this calendar year in comics.
Yes, I agree.
But it's not like the X-Men don't. Like, Wolverine is like the number one person on the team. The X-Men will kill you. Just like, they won't kill everybody all of the time. They're not the Punisher. They're like, well, it had to be done.
Yes.
Feels like
and it
had to be
few
done.
And far between, right? Anyway,
we
should probably
part of the
try
issue,
and rank this.
One last point on this, and then we will rank, I promise. Part of the issue I feel about this is that Axis was never supposed to be an event. Marvel did the thing that they always do. Like, this isn't a new thing, where they take someone's storyline and they elevate it into an event.
Yeah.
And the problem with it is now Rick Remender doesn't get to turn this into an event. Like he doesn't get to turn this into a real story. He has 3 months now to go from point A to point B and set up all this stuff, which means he has to cram all of this into a tiny amount of space, which is why the fact that, by the way, Red Skull has a concentration camp on Genosha comes out of friggin' nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to clean up the stuff from the last arc and set up stuff for this new event, which, by the way, he has to stretch out the small amount of story he had, and that was a thin story to begin with. I could see like this plus some like 6-ish issues maybe
Mm-hmm.
of all of that stuff, but like the fact that this stuff gets both condensed and stretched out, it sucks, man. It just makes for
I
not
agree.
fun reading.
Well, we have the first 5 issues of Uncanny Avengers Volume 1 all the way down at 894. And we have Axis at 922. I don't think
Both of
these
those
3
are-
issues are that bad.
Both of those are worse than this. I will,
Yeah.
without a doubt, I will say that. That I feel no shame in saying.
Is it better than Quest Probe at 800?
I mean, it's probably better than Quest Probe, right? But like,
Yeah.
775. I would put this nearly on par with the Blood of Apocalypse.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We're on similar,
Like from
similar
Millions
ground there.
We're in the. This is bad. Is Adam?
Yeah.
You have Pride and Wisdom highlighted, which I think is an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right 2 below that, I have New Mutants Nova Roma highlighted.
I think and right in between there is Child's Play
from X-Force and New Warriors.
I think these 3 issues on a very basic level, I do think that there's at least some competency here, you know, like the Acuna issues is beautifully drawn.
It's why the Magneto thing pisses me off even more, because
Yeah,
it looks good when Magneto smashes that guy with a brick.
It looks great. I would probably slot this in right below Pride and Wisdom. Like,
I have no strong feelings on that whatsoever.
Child's Play is pretty bad.
Child's Play is bad, but it's bad in a way that it is nonsense.
Yeah.
Yes. This can be 780.
Great. The March to Axis. Uncanny Avengers 23 to 25. Well, we mentioned Ahab, and we might as well do some more Ahab content, Zach. What is this next prelude?
Oh, this is Uncanny X-Men 141.5. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. Regardless of the fact that Marvel did pay us to promote that comic many years ago, we can't find it. And no one comped us anything on that.
No, but to be specific, what Zach is talking about is the Claremont
Prelude
Salvador
to Days of Future
LaRocca
Past. Yes.
Prelude to Days of Future Past, which appeared in the Marvel-made Chris Claremont Omni. But not having copies of that on hand and not being able to find a scan of it online, we resorted to we did try.
If anyone's got like access, patreon.com.
Yes.
Hit me up.
But Zach, you decided on the next best thing. What are we talking about here?
X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday #1 by the Googs, Mark Guggenheim and Manuel Garcia. This came out last year.
Yes. Inks by Cam Smith, colors by Yen Nitro. This is just last year, and it does beg the question, why does this exist, Zach?
So, at one point, Marvel decided that they could quarantine Peter David and Greg Land, and everyone was happy. And they were like, let's do a story about when Spider-Man had his black suit, and we'll put these guys on it. And it was great because no one had to read it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a like flashback to the past story featuring creators I don't care about, telling a story I have no interest in. And I thought, great, perfect, thank you, that's so good. Unfortunately, my understanding is that sold well enough for the right price enough that Marvel just decided for like since then, for like the next 3 years, we're going to put out a lot of old head creators going back to their old work and flashing back and telling stories set in the past. And this comes out of that same effort. Now, to be clear, Mark Guggenheim did not write X-Men 141 and 142 Days of Future Past. So I don't know what the heck he's doing on this. But
we already had Claremont writing other legacy books, including what he's doing right now, which is the Madripoor Nights book, right?
I haven't read the Madripoor Nights one. Claremont's contribution to the weird X-Men legacy stuff, bizarre and fascinating. Like we could easily do a whole episode on that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But this is wild because we are getting a 4-issue miniseries that essentially is trying to tie together all of the separate dots that maybe didn't appear specifically on panel as happening before, all the way through during the original Days of Future Past and the Days of Future Present annuals crossover, along with a lot of just random stuff that Googs is making up, and I am laughing and crying and yikes.
So the comic opens up, and I've got to say, when you step back and you're just reading this like me and Adam, two guys who did not pay money for this, who got it right on that Marvel Unlimited app and knew going into it that we could either have a bad time or just roll with it. If you go with the just roll with it scenario here, then it opens up in one of the funniest ways I've ever seen.
You mean by killing Banshee?
Yes, it kills off Banshee and like Archangel and stuff, but also more specifically, it introduces Kitty Pryde and Colossus's children, Goliath and Sprite, whose names are Jean Rasputin and Charles Rasputin, all of which ticks so many boxes of mine of things I hate. Goliath has organic steel skin, and Sprite has intangibility. So introduces them and then immediately murders them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to Goog's credit, he's not the first person to take this this idea of like Kitty and Pyotr having kids, because we
In
did
Days of Future Past.
We did see that. And then in Years of Future Past, Marguerite Bennett also pulled this stunt, different names, but it is funny
But
that
the same
Mark
weird,
is
like stupid, like, oh, they have the exact same powers as their parents. I hate that crap. I hate that crap.
Doesn't make any sense.
None of this makes any sense to begin with, but also like, not only they hate that they have the same names, and also they named them after Jean and Charles. And I know people name kids after other people, like that's a very common human thing, but not everyone. That's like I don't know, if I was going to roll the dice, 20% max, and that's probably a heavy number of kids who were first named after someone else. 20% max, not 100%, like you get in every stupid epilogue to Harry Potter or whatever.
It is interesting that you're focusing on this, because while it is an auspicious opening to this story, it is by far not the craziest thing that happens
in this issue,
in these books. Which does posit a scenario in which the X-Men are still, for some reason, defending the U.S. government even after it has established the Mutant Registration Act and sicked Sentinels to put mutants in concentration camps.
Yes.
So that's wild.
So here's what happens. It's the ramp up to Days of Future Past is what's happening. We find out a bunch of stuff has happened, including that the Avengers pretty much all disbanded in response to the Mutant Registration Act, which, listen, I know that X-Men and Avengers fans get like mad at each other for weird reasons. The honest truth is the only reason the Avengers haven't been in all the X-Men comics fighting alongside the X-Men comics is because those are the X-Men comics, so the X-Men have to do that fighting, and the Avengers have to do the fighting in the Avengers book. That's
Yeah.
that's just the nature of publishing lines. So it's like Captain America's pretty chill, all things considered. Thor,
Yes.
friend to all mutants. The only reason Thor shows up in the 80s is because Simonson was friends with everybody.
That's right.
Like that's the reality of it. But the Avengers disband, which means the government starts the Defenders, which I don't think they have that trademark either, but that's fine. In any way, the Defenders do a Stamford massacre from Civil War, and that makes things worse. And eventually Magneto's like, well, this is dumb and bad that everything's going on, so here's what I'm going to do. Everyone's being ridiculous.
This is a solid plan for Magneto.
Solid
plan.
Classic Magneto plan. He says, I'm going to disarm every one of their nuclear weapons.
Yep.
None of you can have nukes anymore. Like, I'm not just targeting America. We're getting Hideo Kojima's going to be so happy we're getting rid of all the nukes. Adam, I know that joke's not going to hit for you. That joke's going to hit for like 5 people in the audience whose dad also played Metal Gear a lot when you were growing up. And now you have a lot of thought about nuclear proliferation. Continue.
Oh, so Magneto takes all the nukes. And for some reason that I do not comprehend, and the book does not give great motivation for, the X-Men are basically very offended by this and have to go after Magneto and be like, you better give them back, bub. Not said. And it's like, what? Why?
Because there is a certain generation of people, especially comics people, who see the mutant metaphor as a, like, they don't see anything wrong with Xavier's ideas of, as long as we are a perfect and model minority, that everything will work out for us and we can assimilate into the culture and we can just become just like everyone else, and they will eventually turn on us and love us. And again, reality exists.
So Googs continues to, sort of tie together disparate things from past Claremont stories, including Rachel's flashback from when she comes back in time to Xavier getting assassinated, to the Xavier mansion being under attack, the New Mutants dying. And in the middle of this, he just decides that he's going to do his own little retcon of the Kitty Colossus wedding in one of the funniest pages in comics. Zach, tell him about it.
So, not to get into any of the discourse of Marvel was erasing kitties coming out, which they were, but I doubt that was the motivation of this thing. The motivation of this thing is that Mark Guggenheim likes Kitty and Colossus together, and Kitty and Colossus were together in Days of Future Past, so it makes sense that they would be together in his Days of Future Past miniseries. That's not insane. What is very funny is that they decide to get married. Which, again, because Mark Guggenheim wrote X-Men Gold 30, and because Mark Guggenheim was not intending on that being a swerve, and them not getting married until Donny Cates came in and saved the day at a Marvel retreat and said, actually, it would be better if we did this, and everyone agreed that it would be better if they did this. Guggenheim has them get married and has Kitty's hand phase through Peter's and says, I don't know what I was thinking. That was weird. Anyway, we got married for real.
And it is a similar panel sequence
exactly
to what you see in that issue, and it's very funny.
It's just like that, the alter scene from X-Men Gold 30 condensed down into one page instead of like 4.
Yes.
And it is, you know what? I'm going to say it. To an average, well-adjusted human, it's not funny. It's, oh, okay, I don't know what this is. But for sickos like us who lived it, Adam, for those of us who were there during Resurrection and 2 Online during those times, oh boy, I forgot how funny that was.
It was very funny. The other thankless job that Googs has here is to have to kind of thread the needle between Rachel being a hound working for Ahab, but then also appearing as herself in the original Days of Future Present. So this does require a little bit of juggling. We also get one of the stupidest death scenes in all of these 4 issues, which is
Is it Jean's death from the nukes?
Jean Grey accidentally telepathically activates nuclear
All of the
weapons,
nukes in the world.
and because the plane that she's on with nukes blows up, even though Kitty is there to dematerialize Scott, for some reason radiation still burns out just his eyeballs. That doesn't make any sense, Mark Guggenheim.
It's
What are you?
so
What?
dumb. I love it. Adam, one, it's very funny that Jean blows up every nuke in the world on accident while doing the Jean Scott pose from Uncanny 137 when she dies on the moon.
Yeah. No,
Like
Jean.
the lettering, I want to give a special shout out to Clayton Coles here because he does the lettering just like the Jean Scott lettering for 137.
Yeah, the pose is the same. And we should note that Manuel Garcia, I think, does a fairly good job.
Yeah, it's fine. Not my favorite, but like a good hand.
Yeah. I mean, this feels akin to, a Marvel graphic novel or something like that of the 80s. And it's not bad. I don't know if I always love it on every page. Sometimes things are a little too loosey goosey for me, but when he's hitting, it's not bad.
So there's a bunch of dumb deaths in here. And one thing I do want to go back to and make sure that I say, because I want to give Mark Guggenheim full credit.
Yeah.
He does at least write a full, like, multi-page scene where Magneto, after the nuke event, says, "Yeah, Charles, that was really stupid of you. Did you really actually think they were going to let you get away with this? Like, bud, come on. Were you really this ignorant the whole time?"
Magneto was right, and unfortunately gets his back broken and put into a wheelchair as
but he had to, that was already etched into the stone. Googs had to find a way to get there. Just because we gave Remender such a hard time for all this, I want to point out that Mark Guggenheim at least does have a, like, well, if they're actively doing a concentration camp, maybe Magneto's making some valid points in this comic book.
I will say one of the wildest swings that Googs pulls is that he decides that a certain character is going to appear in issue 3 and then not really appear till the end of issue 4, but off panel give a very good description of how to actually execute the plan that happens in the original Days of Future Past. And that character is Bishop.
And the honest truth is that if Whilce Portacio and et al. Were thinking through things during that time, Bishop would have just been from Days of Future Past. Like, maybe. There's no reason for Bishop not to be from Days of Future Past.
I mean, it's interesting to have another alternate future, No, it's not. You disagree?
I just want to know, besides happening later in the timeline, how Bishop's future is materially different from Days of Future Past.
It's not that different, but it allows him to have his own character.
If you're editing everything together, if you are doing a grand design, so to speak, of X-Men, then you would have Bishop be part of Days of Future Past, just so, like, he's there and, like, that's all one thing. We don't have to deal with another thing. And Malcolm and Randall can be there too. I'm not against it.
Malcolm and Randall are not here. Who is here by the end after the Days of Future Past apparently doesn't work.
No, hold on. That's canon. Because we're jumping around a bit.
It's uncertain whether it works in the original one.
Yes, but hold on. You are now discounting what Guggenheim has to do, which is make all of this make sense, Adam.
I know. Keep going.
One, issue 3 sets up some stuff that, like, they're ready to do Days of Future Past. Issue 4 is 80% a retelling of Days of Future Past, which feels like you had to read it to start this comic to begin with, so it's weird that they're retelling it. But at the end of Days of Future Past, it's left ambiguous, and in fact, set up in a way that like, oh, this kitty has to go back to her own timeline, which Byrne was mad about. That Claremont
Right.
wrote that dialogue that it didn't really work. That was one of the big things that, like, I don't want to say big things. It was another needle on the haystack and all that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Straw on the camel's back. I'm getting my idioms mixed up.
I knew what you
Anyway,
meant.
you knew what I meant. But like when Claremont does later stuff with Rachel, and especially the Alan Davis Excalibur stuff, like it's very clear. Days of Future Past didn't work. They have to keep doing it. Like Rachel gets sent back afterwards from Nimrod. Like that's just text. And that's what they have to set up here.
Well, it also has to show the deaths that occurred in Days of Future Past,
But worse.
even if, yeah. So it's anyway.
Issue 4 is a friggin' mess.
It is.
Like,
where I was going with this is that there is a final group of X-Men that are still leading the charge on the last page, and Googs, I guess, was reading, contemporary Krakoa books, because who appears as part of this team but Laura Kinney and Sync. We've got Laura and Everett there, so I guess that's cool. And Bishop's joined the team; he's around again, I guess.
that
It's a
could
weird
be it.
book.
That could be a good Googs note. That could be an editorial note. I don't know. But that's like it's a fun, never the end kind of ending for this. Even though if anyone wants to revisit this, like there's too much
This
baggage.
is a mess.
It's
this
like
is a mess.
It's like if anyone wanted to revisit X-Men 2099, and I know people actively have and will, but like it's too messy. It's what people think of when they think of that thing. What they think of when they think of Days of Future Past is just those 2 issues.
Mhm.
That's it. Anything additive to that you can't do. You can't go back to Age of Apocalypse because there's about 8 different variants of Age of Apocalypse that are based on what we remember from Age of Apocalypse, which, by the way, ends with a nuke blowing up the world.
Right.
Like, you can't go and do a sequel to any of these things, just like no one will ever go and do a sequel to Days of Future Past Doomsday. Weird comic.
No, because I think this is being sold as the definitive story of how this all ties together, even if it's a sloppy jalopy mess that doesn't make a darn bit of sense, which
And
is why
doesn't even tie into that X-Men comic that we
prelude. No.
That prelude that we can't read because Nightcrawler's alive in that one and dies in this one.
Yes, and Bishop has an
different time.
Australian accent.
So
So
I love Claremont's Australian Bishop. It's weird that that's what he's into. Also
Absolutely
weird that
hate
they
it.
would have.
Claremont's like, black people, they must be related. Okay, at 7:47, we have Days of Future Present. This is definitely worse than Days of Future Present.
That's the meanest you've been to Claremont on this entire podcast. It's been 7 years.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
I just wasn't expecting. You're right. I wasn't expecting
the lie.
it.
All right, at 7:80, we have that Uncanny Avengers arc that we were just talking about. Is that better or worse than this?
That's better than this. I mean, like, It made me. The parts I enjoyed about this comic were not parts I was supposed to enjoy. That's the thing.
No,
I wasn't supposed to enjoy this comic in the way that I enjoyed it. Like, it doesn't feel like I should have enjoyed it that way. That said, this cannot be the worst Mark Guggenheim comic we have on here.
No, I mean, the first couple issues of X-Men Gold are pretty low on this.
That's at 931. This is better than that.
This isn't that bad. In fact, I don't know if this is as bad as like X-Men and Weapon X Noir in the 830s. Or do you want to go lower?
We're around there. Like Civil War II X-Men, I think, is on par with this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not too far below this. This is probably more coherent than Prophet Cable.
yeah, it is. It doesn't end in people jumping around on random space rocks, but it's equivalent to like a couple issues of X-Men: The Hidden Years at 844.
Yeah.
In fact, I would put it above those Hidden Years issues.
I'm going to put it below Uncanny X-Men 106, which is the all new versus original X-Men, which is I think a Danger Room thing, or it involves robots. I think I forget, but it's a
Yes.
fill-in. It's a non-Claremont fill-in.
All right, so this is our new 844, and Zach, we sure did prelude all the preludes.
Yeah, we gave you the prequel to the sequel right there, buddy.
We
We
did.
got it. You know why we did it though?
Thanks to our patron.
Yeah, thanks to Robert. If you want to be like Robert, again, $5. That's all it is. It's $5 US. Throw it at us. We will make this podcast happen based on whatever suggestion you come up with. I don't have any other business. Adam, do you have other business?
Folks, you can always follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram at Adam Rec. You can also check my coverage of the Jason Lowe Fourier Dazzler series over on Comics XF. I believe by this time we will also have a fun Comics XF gift guide and comics gift guide for those comics loving people in your lives. So keep an eye out for those. And Zach, what do we got going on next week?
We're doing a Siren episode, guys. We're doing one about Siren. It's about Terry. We love her. We love her so much. I wish comics loved her the way that we did. But until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!